It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. And so I'm really looking forward to talking to you all about different voices, different perspectives, and the importance of neuroinclusion in the workplace for better mental health. I thought I'd just start off today with talking a little bit about what this space is. So if you have any questions about anything that I'm going to talk about, do feel free to ask them. And your well-being is the most important thing in the room here today. My role is to make sure that your well-being has been looked after. So if there's anything that I talk about that you want to opt out of, feel free to leave this talk at any time. Your well-being is the most important thing, and this session today is designed to improve your well-being and not detract from it. So just a little bit about me. I've been in cybersecurity since 2009, and I'm the founder of Cybersecurity Limited. We provide a lot of resources and support to try and bring the cybersecurity industry together to foster that greater collaboration to go some very small way to combating the growing cyber threat. And I'm also a qualified mental health first aider and a trauma-focused coach, particularly for CISOs and other cybersecurity professionals. And I also offer help and support to those affected by stress, burnout, bullying and abuse, and mental health issues in our industry, particularly on the bullying and abuse aspect, because I've been targeted throughout my lifetime, and not just within work or within the cybersecurity industry. I've certainly had my share of bullying and abuse within cyber, but it's been a key theme throughout my lifetime in every area of my life, including within the family. And I really do believe it's because I am perceived as different because I am neurodivergent. I'm diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and recently with dyspraxia as well. So I have firsthand experience of that whole feeling of being different, of knowing that I'm completely different to all my peers and everyone I can relate to. And the analogy that I use around it is, I always feel like I'm in a scene of Star Trek, where there's Kirk and there's Mr. Spock, and I'm Mr. Spock. I'm the alien on Earth that really just doesn't understand social cues, understand sarcasm, understand a lot of these unwritten social rules as well. So I'm on a mission to talk a lot more about neurodiversity and how that correlates as well with mental health. So just to start off with, I think we're all aware of what neurodiversity is, and how we tend to find some things very easily, but other things incredibly challenging. And this can also lead to inconsistent performance at school or at work or in other areas of our lives. And I'll put that diagram up just to show the interaction with all the different facets to neurodiversity and where mental health fits into that. So is there a convergence with neurodiversity and mental health? Are they the same? Neurodivergence, I think, is actually different to mental health conditions. It doesn't just suddenly appear in adulthood. And there are some exceptions to this with conditions such as schizophrenia, which can often begin in somebody's 20s or 30s. Not always, but that's generally when that kind of condition can manifest itself. And research does show that anxiety and depression are very common in neurodivergent individuals. And that's something that I can absolutely attest to, because for years and years and years, I was diagnosed with anxiety, diagnosed with depression, I kept getting asked, do I want antidepressants? I kept getting referred for counselling, for CBT, for all sorts of other things. And none of it worked, and none of it made much of a difference. So I absolutely know that there is that parallel, and getting that diagnosis, or getting my diagnosis of ADHD and autism, really helped me to understand myself and just how difficult I find it, and do found it, to fit in with the groups and other people. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about neurodiversity and mental health, and the links in with physical health. And you might not think as well that there is a link with physical health, but there is a really good book out there called The Body Keeps the Score. And research has shown that those who are neurodivergent are more than twice as likely as those who are neurotypical to have hypermobile joints. And they're also far more likely to experience pain on a regular basis. It also shows that they're more susceptible to autoimmune illnesses and chronic conditions such as fibromyalgia. And again, I myself was diagnosed with fibromyalgia about 2 or 3 years ago, when I had a wide range of pain-related symptoms that I knew the medical professionals and my doctors who I went to see about it just couldn't put down to anything else. They said it definitely wasn't anything to do with the menopause, that it wasn't anything that they found on blood tests or a wide range of other tests that they did. Everything came back normal. But when they realized about my neurodivergence and the trauma and the abuse and everything that I've been through throughout my lifetime, the doctors put the correlation together and diagnosed me with fibromyalgia. So there is definitely a link with physical health as well. So just going to cover a little bit about the cost of those of us that are neurodivergent and also struggle with our mental health. Poor employee mental health can cost employers around 56 billion a year. And the average cost of mental health in the workplace is around 1,684 Great British pounds per employee per year. And only 25% of neurodivergent employees feel financially secure and emotionally balanced. And 50% of neurodivergent employees feel burnt out from work. And that compares to 38% for neurotypical employees. And again, this is something that I can absolutely relate to, because I will have those periods of time where I can just go, and get things done, get things written, get things launched, and so on. And then I will just crash. And I can crash for anything up to around a week to 2 weeks, where I just can barely function. And I actually count it as an achievement if I can make it out of bed during those periods of burnout. So again, it's something that I can absolutely relate to. So let's have a look at some of the statistics around neurodiversity and mental health. So employees with autism and ADHD can be around 30% more likely to have chronic employment issues. 60% are more likely to be fired from a job, and 3 times more likely to quit a job impulsively. And I certainly, even before I had my ADHD diagnosis, I've been guilty of that, where I would get to a specific point with my work and think, I can't do this anymore, this isn't for me anymore, or I need to do something else. And so I would just end up leaving that job out of the blue. 70% of neurodivergent employees will often experience mental health issues, which has led to calls for much better employer support. And without the right support, those that are neurodivergent can face many barriers to accessing opportunities at work. So a few reasons why those who are neurodivergent might be more susceptible to mental health issues. And it could be from a lack of support in the workplace. So they might be working somewhere that doesn't recognize neurodivergency, that they don't have those reasonable adjustments in place, or they may not have a culture of actually being able to ask for those reasonable adjustments or things that you need to be able to do your job a lot more effectively. There may be anxiety around work performance compared to neurotypical employees. So that could be anything from worrying about if pieces of work are okay, or the real sort of bugbear of mine is getting a message on Teams or Slack and so on, which just says, can we talk, without providing any context or an agenda or anything behind it. And if I get something like that, especially on a Friday afternoon, evening, and I actually don't get to have that conversation, I will spend the whole weekend not resting, relaxing, and really sort of thinking, oh, what was it? What have I done? What is it about my performance? Is it something that I can fix? And that whole anxiety piece really resonates with me. And the biggest reason, masking to fit in with neurotypical employees. Again, I used to mask massively. I was a bit like a chameleon. I would make myself into what I thought my colleagues and my line managers and people that I work with, what they wanted me to be, not what I actually was. And that took a massive toll on me, and it also impacted my mental health, made my levels of anxiety go through the roof as well. So that constant masking was a big factor for me in terms of managing my mental health in the workplace. So, as I'm sure a lot of us know, masking can be a survival tool for engaging in neurotypical societies and organizations. We do it to fit in. We often, and certainly this is true in my case, we often do it to avoid being targeted for bullying or criticism, or to avoid being judged. And we also might mask to avoid that stigma, to try and be a lot more successful at work, to make friends and to enrich those social connections, and to have that sense of belonging. But as I said in my previous slide, the toll it can take on our mental health is absolutely overwhelming. So I'll just talk a little bit about why today's workplaces aren't really conducive to those that are neurodivergent. And it could include things like open plan offices. I actually made the decision to work solely remotely from home back in 2015, way before the pandemic. And it was actually even before I was diagnosed with autism, and my ADHD and dyspraxia diagnoses came later. And I made that decision because I'd just homed a new rescue dog, and she was struggling to settle in. And so I made the move to working from home so I could spend more time at home with my new rescue dog. And goodness, within literally just a couple of weeks of making that decision of transitioning to work from home instead of an office, I was suddenly a lot more productive. I wasn't getting interrupted, every 2 minutes with questions or informal chit chat, which is something that I really, struggled with in an office environment. I was getting a lot more done. I wasn't losing a lot of time to commuting. I wasn't overwhelmed with the constant sort of noise that comes with open plan offices, with a phone ringing or people sort of chatting in the desks opposite me. So I found that working solely from home and working remotely really did help me in terms of being a lot more productive. And it's because of that that I've achieved as much as I have in the last few years. Colours and decor as well. I've been in offices where they've had the most real 1970s patterned, wallpaper and colours like bright orange or brown or things like that. And I I actually can't cope when there's so much of that color sort of coming at me. And too much noise and frequent interruptions. That is definitely not conducive to those that are neurodivergent. And when it comes to the noise, having perhaps noise cancelling headphones can absolutely help. Although I remember before I transitioned to working from home, to being shouted at in front of everybody in an office to get those earphones off, because having them on showed that I wasn't a team player. That's actually going back about 10 years ago now, and I hope that things have moved on a lot since then, and that was before my diagnosis as well. And frequent meetings, either in person or virtual, with no downtime in between them. So I always make sure that I put in plenty of times to before or after meetings so that I can write up any notes, make sure that I understand any actions or things that need doing. And even just doing a talk like this today, I've made sure that I've had time, before this talk and tomorrow as well. I've literally just got one call that I have to do, and then that's it. And I need that downtime just to be able to decompress after something like this, and also before, to make sure that I've prepared thoroughly for it. So how can you support those who are neurodivergent in the workplace? So be supportive of workplace adaptation requests and reasonable adjustments, such as things like flexible working hours. So with me, I work when I sort of feel most effective, and sometimes that could actually be during an evening, or it may even be during the weekends. And if I've got that impetus to get some stuff done, I will just get on and do it, regardless of whether it's the weekend or whether it's the evening. But I always make sure that if I do that, I take some relevant hours or time out during the traditional working week of Monday to Friday during the day. And working like that really benefits me, because I'm working to my best. I'm working when I feel like working and when I know I can get the most out of what I'm doing. And that actually leads to much less burnout in those periods of time that I talked about earlier, where I would just crash for a week or two because I'd just gone so far before the crash took place. Working from home or hybrid working, I've talked about where working from home really helps me, and I've been doing that solely since 2015. But for some people, it might be that they benefit better with a hybrid working environment. So working 1 or 2 days in the office, but then the rest of the time at home. And some people actually might be perfectly okay working full time in an office. So what I would say here to organisations is, be mindful of those requests and work with your employees to, do what's best for them, so that they're providing, and they can do their best work in whatever setup works for them. Providing breakout spaces or quiet spaces. This is actually a really important thing for me. Not so much because I work from home, but perhaps when we're going to events or conferences, particularly the large scale ones, providing that quiet or quieter space, or some rooms where those of us that are neurodivergent can go to, just have that bit of quiet time, gather our thoughts, decompress a bit, is really important. And Cybersecurity Unity actually has a project on the go at the moment where we're working with event organisers in the UK to get them to have this option or a quiet space or a room available for those of us that are neurodivergent, so that we've got somewhere to go for that really valuable decompression time. There was such a space at an event called UK Cyber Week at the beginning of April that worked really well. And it had noise cancelling headphones available. It had relaxing bean bags. It had access to a mindfulness app, which is run by the Sensory. which is something that I make use of a lot. And it worked really, really well. And across the 2 days of the event, I found myself going into that quiet area quite a bit just to get that quiet time and decompress. I'm also working with Info Security Europe for them to provide something similar for next year's event. They did provide something in this year's event, but it was really difficult to find. So my feedback to the organisers is there needs to be much, much better signage at that event so that people know where to go and where to make use of that quiet space. So any event organisers that might be listening to this, I really urge you with your in-person events to provide that quiet space and breakout area. It's so important. Be mindful of bright colours and patterns in the office. So I talked earlier about how particularly oranges and browns and patterns really affect me if I have to be around them for a long time. So I always have sort of neutral colours, and then I kind of choose the things that I have in the background and so on. That so it could be posters or it could be things that play to my interests, and that's what I've got in my home office environment. But definitely being mindful of those bright colours is really crucial so to avoid that sensory overwhelm that many of us struggle with. Having that important downtime between calls and meetings, that's so crucial, and not booking meetings and calls literally back to back, one after the other for staff with the neurodivergent. It's really important to have that decompression downtime and to be able to just gather thoughts, get notes in order, and action points in place as well. And the need to use headphones to block out noise for focused time to work. I mentioned earlier about what happened to me a few years or so ago when I was shouted at across the office to take off my headphones because it showed that I wasn't a team player. I hope that there aren't incidents like that happening today. That was a good 10 years ago. But letting people use headphones if they need to block out noise, that can also be really important. So some more ways that you can support those that are neurodivergent in the workplace. Implementing a good wellbeing system, such as an employee assistance program, and displaying some support literature as well. So, people know where to go if they are feeling a bit overwhelmed or they are struggling, that they know who to go and speak to and where that they can get that much needed support. So providing that clear information of what and who to go to is really important. And I'll talk a little bit as well about an initiative I'm involved with at Qualitest, who I'm doing some work with at the moment, because they have a really good employee assistance program, and they also have really good employee resource groups in lots of different areas of their business. So I help Qualitest with their employee resource groups for mental health. And I also help them with their employee resource group called Qualipride, which is a support group for the LGBTQ plus community, but is also being branched out to include those that are neurodivergent. And through that work that I'm doing, we're putting on regular internal webinars and events, regular meetups. So we can all sort of talk about, areas where we are feeling a little bit, overwhelmed, or where we might be struggling a bit with our mental health, and providing those much needed resources as well, so that people know that they're supported in the workplace at Qualitest, and they know who to go to if they need to speak to people further and escalate things further. And putting all that in place can really help neurodivergent individuals feel, much more confident and secure in their roles. And I've seen a marked improvement as well at Qualitest through the work that we've been doing with the employee resource groups, particularly for Qualipride, and also for the support group that we've got for mental health. Other ways that you can support people who are neurodivergent in the workplace. Encourage openness. So have that open door policy, so that people know that they can talk to you, anytime about anything that they might be struggling with, or anything that they support with. And treat every employee equally, regardless of background, regardless of whether they're neurodivergent or not, and talk about their differences to help them feel much more supported in the workplace. So other ways to help as well is accept that neurodivergence is a big part of human diversity, and that it doesn't define someone, but it can be a very important part of their identity. And also that, of course, no two neurodivergent people are the same. They will have different goals and different needs, and they'll need different types of support to help them, grow and thrive and succeed in the workplace. Advocate for practices within the workplace that accept and accommodate neurodivergence, and speak up as well if you hear or see someone being prejudiced against someone who is neurodivergent. This is really, really important, and I've done this on a few occasions. And be an ally for neurodivergent people. So, have that open door policy, as I talked about earlier. Make everyone feel that they can approach you, that they can talk to you, and get any help if they are needed. And let's celebrate everyone that's neurodivergent in the workplace. We bring so much to the table in terms of our skills and experience and expertise. And we bring so much to the table as well within cybersecurity. We're different. We're not difficult. And that's the bit that I really try to get across with all the organizations that I work with, particularly if there is some reticence around providing reasonable adjustments. I always talk about how, we just work differently. Our brains are wired differently. We're not difficult. So thank you so much for having me today talking to you. Look after yourselves and stay safe. And I'm really happy to answer any questions that you might have.